You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the productivity specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 148, Tackling Your To-Do List, a strategy session with Amber Cortes. If you're a business owner who wants actionable solutions to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me here today. Now, before I get into introducing Amber, I want to share a little bit about this particular format that I've been doing more frequently. A strategy session is an opportunity for you to eavesdrop in on me having a strategy session with someone on a particular challenge. Now, I often get the question of what's the difference between a strategy session and coaching? And there's one very real difference. And the difference is that a strategy session is meant to be a one-off session where we are diving deep into a particular strategy and customizing it for something that you believe is holding you back from improving your time management or productivity. Often it's a roadblock. It may be an area in that you have tried different things and just haven't gotten the success you're looking for. In that case, I would schedule a strategy session. Coaching, on the other hand, is a longer-term commitment. My long-term commitment with my clients is a minimum of 6 months. But what that does is actually create this level of accountability. All right. And every coaching session is going to have an element of mindset, strategy, like you're hearing today, and then the overarching accountability because we're meeting on a recurring basis. And so by investing your time on a consistent basis into coaching, that's what you're looking to do when you want to make long-term sustained changes in your time management and productivity. And this also means that you probably don't have one specific area where you're feeling roadblocked, but maybe there are several. And in that case, through my assessments with my clients, we identify the areas that need improvement. And then I, as your coach with experience, prioritize the areas in which we are going to focus on. Because I can clearly see how stacking those skill sets and those strategies on top of each other will make long-term sustained change. So that is the difference between coaching and strategy sessions. And I really, really think you're going to enjoy today's episode because we're diving deep into to-do list challenges, which I believe that many of you are experiencing. I also want to give this caveat is that the strategies that I am sharing with Amber in this episode are specific to her because of what she said or what she affirmed her experiences are. And again, you may hear me tell her is try this, and if that doesn't work, try this. And why I do that is because I really view everything as an experiment. But what I have unique to me is experience in the strategies that work, along with the data of, well, if this is your challenge, then this could possibly work. If this is your personality type, then this strategy has a higher probability of working. And so I utilize all that information, personality, industry, your particular role in your business, your responsibilities, where you're at with regards to the challenge, meaning what have you tried already? What has not worked for you? Why did that not work for you? All of that is data and information for me, the coach, to recommend strategies that I think would land and be really easy to implement and have a big impact. So that's what you're hearing today. I wish for you to listen to this strategy session and identify with the pieces that resonate with you that you can see yourself in, and grab a few of the strategies I shared with Amber and apply them for you in your business and your to-do list. All right, now before I introduce Amber, one more thing, because I cannot wait to bring her on, is I want to share with you a couple opportunities to improve your time management and really power up your productivity. If you have not already done so, I want you to go grab my free Take Back Your Time mini training. In this mini training, I will show you how to reclaim 30 plus minutes a day, every single day. This is a big promise, but it is no joke. I promise you, the strategy that I am sharing in this training will have a huge impact on taking back your time. And then also, if you have not done so, I created a special masterclass specifically for this challenging time that we find our businesses in. And so I want you to grab that. It's Pivot, Navigating These Uncharted Waters in Your Business. You can grab those both by going to theproductivityspecialist.com/training. And there you'll find all my trainings, but you can grab those two right there on that page. Again, that's theproductivityspecialist.com/training. Amber Cortes is a certified interior designer with Envision Design and Build in Santa Cruz, California. Envision is a family-run business. Her father and husband run the construction side, while Amber handles the design, project management, and marketing. Together, they work with their clients to create beautiful and functional spaces based on client needs, vision, and budget. Amber grew up on job sites learning various types of construction from her father, which has proven to be a great benefit. She attended the Art Institute in San Francisco and graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Interior Design in 2010. She worked on both residential and commercial design firms before starting Envision in 2017. In her free time, she enjoys being outdoors with her husband and 2 young girls. And now, let's get to the straight talk and meet Amber. Hello, Amber. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk. How are you today?
Hi, Amber. Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing well.
Yes, well, considering all the things, we were just doing a little bit of pre-chat and, we're not sure when this episode will air, but we're right in the middle of week 2 of really being quarantined. So we both have little ones at home and spouses at home. And so we're still doing this. We're still showing up and recording, but things are going well for you guys?
Yeah, it's definitely has its challenges, but slowly but surely we're finding our way and figuring out what this new normal looks like. So,
oh, you said it so well. I do believe, all over the country, everyone's in different waves of like when it became very real for them. And where I'm at, we're in week 2 of full shutdown. And so it's like last week was like the wild, wild west. And this week, everyone's looking for their new normal. So I do anticipate, although none of us know how long this is going to be, is that we're all going to be in search for what that new normal is and navigating all our roles kind of under the same roof, right? Like business owner and mom and spouse and all the things. And I have a feeling that some of that's going to come up today, but specifically when we scheduled this, neither one of us knew this was going to be going on. And so we decided to do a on-air strategy session because you had something that I thought would be of great value for the listeners of Productivity Straight Talk. So let's just dive in and see if I can help you strategize through something that is challenging for you right now. And let's do it. So can you tell myself and our listeners what challenge in your own words specifically would you like to work on today?
Okay, so normally this is an issue, but it's even more of an issue now that I have more things. So the task list, I tend to get really overwhelmed and kind of spin out of control when there's a lot of things on my task list. And now, besides just all of the work stuff, now there's a lot of more home things and just other tasks that weren't normally on my list but are on it now. So just figuring out how to tackle that.
Yeah. So I love that you did say, this was a challenge prior and now it's almost like a magnifying glass is put on it. And that is true. But here's also the great solution is that what's going to create solution here and now in this situation is actually going to serve you well in your business into the future when we get past this. It's almost like when we're in crisis or something's going on in our lives, it actually kind of shows where there's any kind of weakness in our systems or workflows or room for improvement. And so you were proactive. You're actually reached out about this prior to. And so I'm really glad that I'm meeting you where you're at right now and we're going to navigate through this. And so just to restate what I heard is that you have a challenge of getting through such a long and robust task list that feels overwhelming, and how to create movement from a task list to, I would imagine, what your day ends up looking like, right? Like there needs to be some in syncness with that.
Right. Yeah. Knowing where to start. Obviously, I know I can't get through the whole thing, but I'm prioritizing.
Yeah.
So I know I have like a few items that I can get done, because often I'll just run around in circles and then not accomplish anything. And then I feel bad. And it's just this cycle, like the cycle of shame. I just keep going in circles and I'm not accomplishing much. And, it's just frustrating.
And yet you're working hard and you're exhausted, and yet it doesn't show for a lot of progress. I get that.
Right.
So talk to me about how do you currently keep your task list? Is it on paper? Is it digital? Is it a little bit of everything?
So I have a Word file with all of my clients on it. So I update it weekly, and it has all of the projects, the to-do list for each project for each week. And then I have a spot for urgent items, and then kind of soon-ish items, and then just other things that have to do with like marketing or other miscellaneous tasks. So what I will do is I'll go through at the beginning of the week and highlight things, but often there'll be so many things highlighted that then I'm just like, okay, which one do I go to? So I get a little bit burnt out with that. Sometimes I'll try the sticky note and I'll just write like 3 things down and kind of hide everything else from myself. Sometimes that's effective, sometimes it's not. It just depends on what I have going on.
And when that is effective, why do you think that is effective during those times?
Probably because I'm focused on 1 or 2 things at a time, and I'm not looking at the whole big picture that's big and scary.
Yeah. And then when it's not effective, is that because they don't actually get done, or they were the wrong 3 things? Like, what would make that strategy not effective for you?
Yeah, I would say that's probably a true response there, that it's maybe I'm not choosing the right things, because sometimes it's just, things seem urgent, or even like an email pops up, like that seems urgent. And then I go to that. And so just trying to stay focused on the things that I really need to do. And I guess sort of slowing down to strategize is helpful, because if I just start writing things, even my 3 things will then become 10 things on my little tiny Post-it note. And then I'm as confused as I was before I tried to do it.
Right. And on your list, so we're going to refer to that as your master list. And so it's really important that we make a difference, because we are going to be breaking that up. Because everyone's master list, if really we did take the time to get it out of our heads and things, it could be hundreds and hundreds of things, which will freeze anyone. That is just, it's overwhelming. But that is the reality of being a business owner and running a business, and also having all these roles. At any given time, I mean, I have on my recurring master list, like getting my son a haircut once a month. Like I just need it somewhere, right? But I don't need it in my face the other 3 days of the month, or 3 weeks of the month. I just need it to come up that week that he needs to get a haircut. And so when we have so much, it is really important. And so what you already tuned into is the fact that you absolutely need a way to filter your master list from your daily list or your weekly list. Okay. And so are you currently doing a weekly review consistently? So when you say you look at the list and you update it weekly, is that a consistent habit and behavior right now for you?
Yes and no. So for the most part, it's weekly, but it's not always like Monday mornings, or, it's not a specific time necessarily. So I would say it's pretty consistent, but not so much. Like I don't put it on my calendar.
Okay. So if I was looking at your list right now and we were looking at the client tasks, are there due dates next to the tasks?
No.
Okay. And when we looked at your list, how detailed are the tasks broken out? So if you can give me an example of, if the project is Elm Street, okay, what types of tasks fall underneath that?
Sure. So for this project I'm looking at, I have finish selections, finish construction documents, Schedule a meeting with the landscape designer. Review drawings for structural.
Okay. Well, that is actually really good. I wasn't expecting that much detail. So you're using really good words like verbs in front of it, right? So schedule, review, finalize. So you're really, really clear about the actual activity that needs to get done. The second thing that I look at when we are writing our to-do list is how specific is it? And by creating, I call it verberizing. And so by creating action words in the front of a task, it forces you to get very specific about how to move that task forward. And you're nailing that. So pretty much you're doing that. The only thing that I would say is a little general and can still feel overwhelming is, what does finalize mean? And that could be multiple draft steps. It could be multiple edits. And so when you say schedule, that's perfect. When you say review, construction documents, that's very specific. The only strategy I'd give you here is, can you get a little bit more specific if needed on finalizing documents or finalizing review, whatever finalize means to you? Is there multiple steps to that, or is it really just one step?
No, that makes total sense. And honestly, sometimes when I look at the things on my list, they're just a thing. And then it seems like more of a project because I haven't broken it down step by step, because it's just like, oh, what do I actually need to do for that item? And then, then I think about it and then it never goes into more detail. So that makes total sense.
Right. So when we think overwhelm, or freezing and not knowing how to take action, it's because we are not clear about the way forward. And so what you have is a bunch of elephants on your to-do list. And you think, if you look at your schedule, you're like, well, when do I have time to eat the whole elephant? And we don't. We're literally looking at blocks of 30 minutes or an hour and a half. Because if from the very beginning we haven't quantified how much time is needed, we almost kind of tell ourselves by default, like, well, I don't have time to finish it or get started on it. So we'll just do something easier. We'll do something faster. We'll do something I could check off my list. That's not wrong. We're going to lean into that because we do that. We say, I just want to check something off my list. I want to do something easier. Everything about what I teach is like leaning into what works. So if that works, all we have to do is tweak how we're writing the list so we can pull things over that feel easier, simple, smaller, that have like bite-sized pieces to it. Instead of saying, oh, well, I just shouldn't do that. Like, of course, slap my hand. I shouldn't do the easier thing or the fastest thing. Or no, last time I checked, we like to enjoy our days. And that feels easier, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the strategy is, okay, so if we know that that's what we tend to do by default, what we want to do is set ourselves up for success by creating a list that is really as detailed as possible. The caveat to this is, what I don't want is for you to expand this entire master list and really detail out everything, because that's really a waste of time. You should be taking action. And so what we want to do is, on a weekly basis, when you determine, what was one of them? Finalize
construction documents.
Okay, great. So for example, finalize construction documents. If that's the next thing that is a priority to get done in the week ahead, because we're planning our week, what I would like to see is, as it moves over, that it's more specific. And it's like, finalize the first draft, send email. I'm just pulling these. Like, I don't know what all the steps are. But at that time, I want you to pull down the individual steps that it would take to get that task to completion, or that mini project, as you already referenced it. They are, if there's multiple steps. Once we do that on a weekly review, now we can look at our calendar and find the pockets of time that we can move pieces of it forward, instead of now looking at our calendar saying, well, when do I have 90 minutes to finalize this document? You may or may not be able to find that time. And so what happens is, we just don't get started as often. Is that kind of what's going on?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because I'll look at this and I'm like, well, I do that. I'm like, what little things can I get done? And then I'm looking at that. Well, that's going to take, 4 hours. Like, I don't have time for that. And then, the next thing I'm like, no. And then I don't get done the important things because I'm not creating those little moments of time and like making them little wins to kind of fuel me to continue on.
Oh, that I want to quote you right there. Little wins to fuel you to move on. That's what we're always looking to do, is build upon that momentum. And it keeps us in a really healthy mindset as well. And so we always want to create that as often as possible. All right. So the other thing that you said, though, was that there's no due dates. Okay. So the fact that you're using a Word document is not a particular issue to me. Like if I look at the phases, so this is more so for anyone that's listening. So when I asked her, where's your to-do list? And you thought to yourself as the listener, well, it's kind of nowhere. It's everywhere. It's on sticky notes and notepads. And I tried this digital app and then I keep notes on my phone. That is the reality for a lot of people. So if that's where you're at, one level up is getting it into one location, which for Amber, for you, this is your Word document, or it could be a Google document. This is in fact what I recommend in one of my programs, is just your first task is to corral it from all the places and get it into one place. So you shared that it was in the Word document. Would you say that it is updated and literally has everything that would be floating around in your head? Like, is it your one place that all your to-dos live?
There's probably like 85% on here. So there's still some stuff that's floating around in my head that when I remember it, I don't have my list in front of me, so then I forget it again.
Right. So one thing that I really want to point out here that's important is that we want to shoot for like 95%. Like 100% would say we're perfect. No one's perfect. But what we want is for us all to have one place that we trust has all the things. And the reason is because we have to have a system we trust, or we will forever and always default to our mind. And it's like our mind will actually override anything that's on this list. Like you could do the work, you could plan it, you could do whatever, but then our brain says, I know better. And so you go to whatever you're thinking about in the moment, or you think that you forgot something. And so it creates a little more stress about how to prioritize. The fact is, our brains are really wrong. We cannot remember all the things. And really, it's very difficult to properly prioritize until you have it all out in front of you. And so what you may be experiencing by running at 85% or 80%, or maybe that even fluctuates when you feel more stressed and more overwhelmed, is that people kind of tend to default even more to what's in their head. Is that then what we're defaulting to is the thing that we're thinking of, because we tell ourselves, if I don't do it now, I'll forget to do it. And that right there will hijack any good plan. Any strategy I could literally pass to you today, when we let our brains override and make decisions of how we're spending our time in that moment because we don't have a system we trust, it literally hijacks the strategy. And so I would just encourage you to find a way to be updating your list as frequently as possible. Now, with that being said, that's when we ask ourselves, is a Word document the best place for that? And so there's nothing wrong with a Word document as long as it's accessible and you can update it. Perhaps you have access to it on your phone when you're thinking of things or when you're away from your office. But this is also when we have an option to take the one location up one more level to any kind of task management system. And we always want our task management systems to be ease of use. And this is why I would often pause people. Because Amber, you have a great opportunity for us to focus on making that Word document the best that it can be for you. And you're building good habits. And then you're like, you know what? I'm ready to up level into a task management system. Because I don't want you to be worried about learning a task management system like tech on top of building new habits and routines. Okay? All right. So that's the elephant in the room, because people are going to be like, Amber, why didn't you talk to her about a Word document? And I'm going to say, because if it works, we're going to keep using it. The only tweak is any good task management system will make you put a due date on a task. So if I'm going to let you keep your Word document for now, we have to add due dates to each of the tasks. It has to have a timeline. So a little bit of the language that you used when we did our pre-chat was that the tasks just roll over, right? Like they're intended to get done and they roll over. And that's very true because there's nothing to hold them. There's no due date, or the due date is a moving date in your head. It's like, I hope to get it done, but it's not a definitive, like this is when it needs to get done, which is creating a boundary for you to work towards and with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it seems like good accountability.
It is. It's good accountability. Now, having the due dates is, I'm just saying it in phrase, is probably not half the battle, but it is part of the battle is having a due date because we can ignore that due date.
Yep.
But what happens is it just helps us put in some perspective of when certain things are absolutely due and when other things aren't. And that will help you prioritize. Okay. And in your industry, I'm assuming you're working with external due dates that are promised to clients and to vendors and to other people. So there are some things that have very real due dates.
Yeah. So depending on the project and the client, sometimes like I have 2 projects I'm working on now, which it's kind of good timing for these. They're not in a hurry. They never reach out. I try to keep the ball rolling, but on other projects, yes, there will be timelines and there will be certain things, especially on construction projects that I'm working on. So that's also challenging because sometimes I'll get calls like from the job site right now, and then that kind of hijacks my to-do list also, which is probably a whole nother podcast. But
yeah, for sure. Those unwanted calls.
Challenging.
Exactly. Okay, this is really good. So we're going to want to encourage due dates, even if they're due dates that you are self-imposing. Okay. One thing that I heard you say that I think that we can just tweak, but I think is really good, is that you had themes already. You had categories on your to-do list. So some of the things I wrote down was like you had all your client files, and then you broke that out into urgent and then kind of soon. I guess you're bubbling them up as they're due. And then you had business tasks like marketing and visibility, and then you have like home personal tasks as well. So they're categorized in a sense, correct?
Yes.
Is your calendar, do you work off of a time blocking calendar generally?
I use Google Calendar and I do try to time block, but I have certain things that stay there that are reoccurring things, but in general, no, I'm not time blocking like I should be.
And when you do have time blocks that stay there, are they like themes, like client work? Like, is that like a block of time or?
No.
Okay.
No, for a while I had one that was like sort of themed. It was like Fridays, work on business stuff for, 2 hours, but then that would just get rolled over because of all the other stuff on the list. So
yeah, exactly. Okay. So I want you to think of this visually because now we've got this to-do list, right? That's kind of categorized with client work. It's categorized with business tasks, which are super important, which will get rolled over forever, right? Because client work always seems to bubble up as default, but we don't want that to happen. And so I would encourage that you do find time on your schedule, like you just said. Maybe it's a Friday afternoon or a Friday morning that you're going to hold the line and you are naming that business marketing and visibility. And what it is it's an empty bucket on your calendar because it's pretty much just holding that space from appointments and holding that space from you thinking that you have that additional time for, say, client work, okay? And now your job is to fill that bucket up with tasks that fall from that category. So as you're making your running list, this is how you move them onto your calendar. This step right here, though, Amber, I want to explain is a way to combat the idea of, it doesn't really matter if I just roll that over to next week or I don't do it. Because now you're not moving over something general and vague, such as marketing and visibility activities, because we're not really clear what that is. You would have to look at it and be like, oh, so I'm not doing that thing and that thing and that thing that have been categorized marketing and visibility. It holds yourself to a little bit of accountability with that additional clarity of what you're going to do during that 2 hours, right? And so if we're looking at it as a game, and I know those of you listening cannot see my hands flying all over the place, is like if your master task list is here and it's categorized. And then you have buckets of time on your block schedule that coincide. So you'd have client work time. You may have personal task time. I do that on Fridays myself. And so then you're filling up those blocks of time with the intentions of pulling things from your master to-do list. Okay. And so, Amber, do you believe that if you had a bit more clarity as to how you were spending your time, you'd be able to move through those activities a bit with more ease?
Yes. Yeah. I think that kind of putting the specific information, it just seems more real that way instead of like, oh, it's, I'm supposed to be doing marketing, whatever that means.
Yeah.
It's because it's not fully thought out. It's just, I don't remember who said it, but it was like making things from a project into just steps. So that way it's actionable. So you're just like,
yeah,
you made a plan for yourself and you're following it. So you're just doing what you said you were going to do.
Yeah. So the strategy of having the block of time on your schedule is great. You're actually bringing something that's incredibly abstract, a little less abstract, but it is. But by assigning specific tasks to that bucket when you review your week is creating concrete to-dos, concrete intentions. That's what I would rather say. It's the intention of what you will complete during that block of time. And for you, like, for example, you said 2 hours. Now, this is where the planning comes into place and being a little bit more strategic is you may be able to get 3 things done in an hour and a half, or maybe it's 2, and one thing takes 30 minutes and you look at it and you can kind of estimate. You're like, I think I can get that done in 30 minutes and this other task will take an hour. So those are the only 2 things that I'm focusing on during that time. When we create this weekly plan and intention ahead of time with filling up these buckets, what it does is create little milestones, but they're sprints. So if we're running a marathon and the week is a marathon, what we're doing is creating intentions of these little sprints. Like, this is what I intend to get done during that block of time. And now we've taken, whatever our week looks like, whether that's 40 hours, 60 hours, 20 hours of work, and we've gotten really clear with what our intentions are for specific times in the day. And that all came from this master to-do list. That's where the movement comes from.
I love that. I love that because often I think I anyway, kind of do the guilt thing and I feel like I'm not being as productive as I should be. Okay, I'm working 8 hours, quote unquote, but how much did I actually work, And I think I've heard you say before, like, you don't have to be productive all the time, and most people aren't. So it's just finding those times that you can be productive and, like, do it.
Oh, gosh, I love that you said that. So if you're listening, like, I didn't go and say, hey, Amber, how are we going to block out your entire day and your entire week? Because, like you said, I do not believe that we are productive all day, every day. In the midst of your block schedule and what I refer to as white space, that white space is working, but it's not the time where I want you to be focused, undivided attention, where you're, marking things off your to-do list. In those times, it's like, oh, that urgent phone call that came in or that email that needs to be taken care of. Like, that is a normal day. But if you could really create these pockets of time with incredible intention, even if it's 2 hours a day and then building up to 3 hours a day or, just incrementally building up, it's the consistency most days of the week that is going to create that movement of chopping that to-do list down. And so, because what doesn't show up on our to-do list are those phone calls, are the emails that we're fielding, picking up the kids from school, and yet our days are full. And so we still need space and time for that, but we have to hold the line. We have to have these pockets of time that the intention is to move things from our to-do list to done.
Yeah. And I love the idea of the white space because that just gives us more flexibility. So if a call or something comes in that's an urgent thing and something needs to be moved a little bit, then it's not like your whole time blocking just got moved down for the rest of the day because it's completely blocked. You have that flexibility in there.
Right. So what happens when we don't have white space, and a lot of us running, and I say a lot of us, meaning my clients and people I've worked with, they're redlining, meaning there is no white space. So when one thing happens that's unexpected, it ruins the entire plan. Then when it ruins the entire plan, things get deleted instead of moved. And then we say to ourselves and affirm, well, why do I even plan? It never goes as planned. And so why would I waste the time planning? I could just be figuring it out. And that's not a great long-term plan. So thank you for bringing that up. Like, white space for clarity is not that you're not doing anything. It's just that you're not setting the intention for your highest value activities coming from your to-do list. Okay, so let's talk about some other ways to make movement on your to-do list. So let's just recap, and this is mostly for me and maybe for you listeners, is we made sure that her master to-do list had very specific verbs of action. And by doing that, it's forcing her to get very specific as to how to move the task forward. I want to say something about that. Our planning brain that's going to decide how to move that task forward, it should be separated from our doing brain. So if you are planning your week, Amber, and you're looking at what's the intention for what's getting done this week, which is what you're currently doing, and you're saying, here's my 3 to 5 things, or here's my 10 things I want to do. For those things right there, I want you to get very, very specific with. And this is all during planning your week. Because what I want is that you don't overdrive on Monday and Tuesday and your brain takes over and says, well, actually, I don't feel like doing that. And so maybe I'll just do something else. And so you try to replan the plan. So how I like to explain that is we want to separate our brains. The planner is like the best of our CEO brain. Like, we are optimistic. We know next week is going to be great. Tomorrow is going to be great. We are seeing our future selves as our best selves. And so this optimistically is what we're getting done. Then we go to do the do, and someone else shows up, the employee side of us. And the employee side of us doesn't get to say, I don't feel like doing that today. The employee side to us would be fired if it said, well, I don't know what that boss was saying, but that's not really important. I'm going to rather do this other thing. And so if we can just kind of channel that as small business owners, we have a business brain, our CEO brain, boss brain, and we have an employee brain. And when they get in the same room and they're fighting over control, that's when a mess happens. And so we want to separate the planning from the doing, so that we say, oh, I want to be my best employee. And my best employee would like show up on time and they would do the thing the boss said was a priority. And just separating that out, it's a hilarious example, but the example has come from hundreds of case studies of being like, okay, what's going on here? Oh, we would fire ourselves, really, if we looked at it as the business owner. Like, if we really behaved like this, we'd probably fire ourselves. And so maybe if we can in our minds just separate those, we could show up better as employees and we can show up better as the boss.
Yeah, that's both the good and the bad of being the CEO of your business. And, we wear so many hats that it's hard to separate ourselves into different people, but that makes total sense. I'm putting on my worker hat now.
Yes.
Just do what I'm told.
Exactly. And here's the best news of all of that. You got the best boss in the world, right? So you get to be the best employee, and then you get to work for the best boss, which is you too. But what we want to do is, if that works for you, it is to think of it through the funnel of, if you had gone back to a corporate job or a regular job, is you wouldn't sit down at your desk and renegotiate all the plans that your boss gave you. And
that wouldn't go over so well.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't, except for we think it should now because we're the boss and we get to. And so when we realize that, now we get to make the plan because we actually have confidence that the plan is going to be executed. We're not going to sabotage the plan. And we need that because, as we know right now of this recording, there's enough going on in the world that can sabotage a good plan, right? That we don't need to be sabotaging it too. So by creating this, getting really specific about what the intention is for the week of the focus, your high value activities, bringing them over to, a short edited list of this is what I'm focusing on this week. Now you're going to look at your block schedule and you're going to plug those tasks into the buckets that are on your calendar. So Amber, if you have 3 blocks of client work time, because that's your current schedule, or you have one every day, we haven't gotten into those details, but whatever that looks like for you running your business is how much work you can move from your to-do list to your to-done list, right? And so if you have 3 blocks of 2 hours a week, then you just start with your highest, most important activity that's showing up on that weekly list. And you say, how long will this take? And that's an estimate. It could be 30 minutes and it could actually take you 45. And so that's where that little bit of white space and grace comes from. And now you're going to schedule out all your client work through those blocks of time that are sitting on your calendar. And you're filling up the buckets. Now, Amber, what happens when we set an intention for a task because we made a best guess that it would take 30 minutes and it really takes longer? Do you think that happens or that will happen for you?
Certainly it will.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely happen, right?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It depends on the project and the task too, but certainly in what I do, certainly it could take twice as long. Like sometimes I just don't know.
So I'm going to break your tasks into 2 different ones. So creative tasks and like actual task, like you're doing a task that's less creative, because it's very different. If I said, can you pick out, the fabric that's going to be in, or the colors, let's just say you're doing the color palette. That's the first thing, right? Is like, you could nail it right away, or you just need time to like look at different things and see inspiration and like finalize a color palette. So we could be talking 20 minutes or we could talk 2 days of being in and out of it. Is that correct?
Not quite so much, but it could be quick depending on what I'm doing and how focused I am and how long it's been since I've looked at the project. There's a lot of different aspects to it. So it can be, I think that's another challenge, is trying to find, even when I do block it out, then it's hard when it doesn't get finished.
Right. Yes. That's probably a whole nother episode, right? So I just wanted to address the part about this creative. So one of the things that's on my list is to write 12 social media posts this week. So that's very tangible. It's done or it's not done, or I did 6 or I did 12. Like, it's very tangible. And so what I will do is set an intention that I can finish 12 posts in 90 minutes. Now, did that sound like a really sure 90 minutes? It's not, right? But what I'm doing is, one, ideally, based on the value of that task, I think I should be able to get it done in 90 minutes. Any longer than that, I'm not sure I'm going to get a good return on my time. So that's something that I consider when I create an allocation of time. 2 is I'm actually looking for previous experience and data of like, how long does it take me to write content?
Right.
So some other people are like, 12 posts, I could have that done in 30 minutes, because that's their thing. Writing is not my thing. And so I'm taking my experience and my previous data to say, it takes me a while to like process it. And I would like to kind of skip around and I like to work from inspiration. And so, but what I'm going to do is set an intention that for 90 minutes, nothing else gets my attention. And I'm going to give it a sure, gosh darn good try that 12 posts are done at the end of 90 minutes. Well, the psychology is I've set so much intention and clarity, and now we're practicing all the things we've heard on Productivity Straight Talk about not having distractions and being really focused. And then I'm either going to hit that time or I'm not. And if I don't, that is really good. And I know you didn't expect me to say that, but it's data. It's data. Yeah.
Sure,
because it's not
sense.
Good or bad. It's data. Data said that Amber didn't have enough information to really estimate that it took 90 minutes. Or the data said, gotcha, Amber. What you really did was get on social media and think you needed inspiration, and then you checked your email. But it's allowing me at the end of that 90 minutes to have a real straight talk with myself. Was I focused? Did I show up my best? Or was it just that I didn't have enough information to estimate that time? When we do that over and over and over again, we start nailing the times. Because now we have more and more data and more information about how long something takes us to do. What is our ability to focus? Amber, I don't know, I didn't ask you, but 90 minutes doing social media posts, some people might hear that and be like, I'd stab my eye out. I can work for 25 minutes, right? So
yeah,
it's all data. We just need to figure out what works for us.
right.
And so if I don't hit it and I was incredibly focused, I guarantee next time my goal will be to write 6. And then I'm going to break it off, and then I'll put another time on my calendar and I'll write another 6.
Yeah.
Because the option is not to go to 2 hours. Like I couldn't do 2 hours of post.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're figuring out what works for you, what's not working, kind of reflecting, and then, making a better plan next time, I guess.
Yeah, it's data. And so I'm sharing that because as you move things off your to-do list and you look at it and you estimate that should take me 30 minutes or this should take me an hour, don't worry about being right or wrong. We have to assign a time and set some boundaries to it. And then at the end of it, we get to have an honest conversation with ourselves. Like, okay, so I did my best work. Honestly, it's going to take longer. But as business owners, and especially for yourself, if you bill hourly, this is really good data to say, so I might not be making as much an hour as I thought, because truly, when I'm working my best, this stuff takes longer than I thought.
Right.
It's just information. And then we get to take that information and it could have impacts everywhere in our business, all the way to how you estimate jobs in the future.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And that makes me feel a little bit better, because I guess in the past I was blocking out time, not finishing, blocking out time, not finishing, or just kind of having it roll over to the next time block without analyzing, like, was I getting distracted during that time? Was that too long of a time block for me to really be productive, or, really analyzing what was happening?
So thank you. So I really want you to just say, okay, I'm recommitting to setting specific times to things. And that for those times, again, thank you for reminding everyone that's listening, is like, we're not trying to do this for the 6 hours we work or the 8 hours a day. We're talking about hyper-focusing on getting these specific tasks done without, limited distraction and interruption, and being in your best zone to do your best work. If under those circumstances, you're still not hitting the deadline, it means that you were way too optimistic. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing in most things, but when we try to plan our days, sometimes that can really turn out and bite us. So then now we're like, okay, well, next time I'm going to have a little bit more grace, and clearly it's going to take me about a half an hour more. Now, the other thing is that we want to ensure that while we're creating these deadlines to specific tasks, whether that's 15 minutes to do something, 30 minutes, they're intentions. And just by the sheer fact of creating that intention, it allows us not to just take as much time as it, like, we're not just like opening up a task. Actually, Parkinson's law says tasks expand to the amount of time given, right? And so
I love that.
Just say we don't give an end time to something, and we're not really clear about how much time we should be spending to something. It is no surprise that task rolls over from day to day, time slot from time slot. Now, again, coming full circle, we're not fighting Parkinson's law. We're saying, great, now that we know that, how do we use it for us? Right. And this is how, by creating some deadlines to specific tasks.
Yeah. For some reason, I never thought about that in terms of like day-to-day work. I have noticed it when I am preparing for a presentation. If I procrastinate and I only have a few days to like get it done or something, I am stressed, but I always get it done. And it's always, it's good work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for some reason, I never made the correlation to like my regular work. And now I'm like, duh, it's the same thing. Like, of course, stuff's not getting done.
So you want to create your own internal deadlines. This tells me you work incredibly well with deadlines. I suspect you probably heard that episode because you kind of mentioned it, is like, I do the same thing. Like, I taught a class this morning, in all honesty, and I wrote the entire outline 90 minutes before I jumped on a national webinar. And here's the reason. I knew what I wanted to say. I had been teaching it in some way or form for years and then hyper-focused over the last week and a half. And I was like, I could do this. I could fill up my calendar the day before and like go through, like spend all this time doing the training. Or I could jump into my office 90 minutes before I got on. And I knew that I could show up. Now, that's data. That's experience. Don't do that if that doesn't work for you. If you don't work well under pressure, don't do that. But I also replicate that pressure throughout my day, throughout my weeks, because I know I work better that way. And so you may too.
Thanks for bringing that up again. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Do you have any last questions as we kind of close out? I think I gave you a lot of things to like try and sample with your to-do list. And again, there are specific strategies, but always look at how to make them your own flavor and make them work for you.
Yeah, I think this is all really good information and that I just need to work on kind of making a separate list and then actually implementing that for each week and being really specific about things and putting deadlines on things so that I'm holding myself accountable and accomplishing more and feeling better, which is, the cycle of goodness.
It is. Okay, I got to say one more thing because I cannot keep this strategy to myself. Is you had mentioned 2 projects where there weren't any real hard deadlines and it's kind of an easy flow project. I hear that a lot. So I would encourage you to express verbally to your clients an external deadline that you've created. I promise to have to you X thing by X date. And the reason I think that would work well for you is because now you have that external accountability and you will rise and you will hit it. And what it will do is free you up to add another project to your list and to move through to other tasks. And so while your client doesn't have a deadline, sometimes we just have to publicly go out there so that we don't get to negotiate with ourselves when we show up all by ourselves trying to work down that to-do list.
Yeah, I've been feeling like that lately, that with these couple of projects that I need to just set a deadline for our next time to meet, because then exactly what you said, I know I'll have everything ready and then things will be moving on instead of like, well, they haven't said anything, like the point is to make money and to run a business. So with that in mind, like it's good to keep moving here.
So I would encourage you to jump off and try it with those 2 projects. And then in the future, as you bring on new clients, maybe you just brainstorm your own timeline and start communicating that with your clients to keep the ball going externally, not just internally thinking you have to work through this to-do list. Because as much as we want, we can't always trick our brains. And so your brain really knows it's lying to itself. So, I have this deadline. You're like, well, I don't really have this deadline. So sometimes we need a hard deadline so that we are no longer playing games with ourselves and showing up as our best selves.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds like a really good plan of attack because, well, we can be our worst enemies at times. Our brain is smart and we know that, sometimes things aren't that important and that we can just push them along. So yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. All these kinds of little things to help create more wins, really.
Yes. All right. Awesome, Amber. And so what I was doing was recapping. So I'm going to no longer coach or strategize. We were recapping. So you have a master to-do list. It's all in one place. You're going to add due dates to it. You're going to be very specific. You're not going to worry about prioritizing the whole master list. You're just going to look at it and say, what is my intentions to get done next week? From that list is where you prioritize. So just in that context of what you've already determined gets done next week, what's the top priorities? And then if based on your block schedule of buckets of time on your calendar, you're going to fill them up with start and end times to specific tasks. So if the bucket is a 2-hour block of time or an hour block of time, you may get 3 tasks done. It just depends on the type of task and how long things take. And then Amber, you're going to be practicing by pausing and actually looking at what the data tells you on why it rolled over or why you didn't hit a specific time deadline. And that's all good information when you plan your next week and you're going to be a bit more realistic. Right? And deadlines, I think that was it. Was there anything else that you thought was super valuable that you will be implementing based on today's call?
I think that's a really good a really good list. And for myself, just remembering the whole Parkinson's law thing, like that's just a good reminder of if I just give myself infinite time, like I might not ever get anything done. Not that that's the case, but like it's just, more motivation to set time blocks and what's the word? Just specific dates.
Yeah, deadlines.
Yeah, deadlines.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Right. Well,
Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it.
oh, you're welcome. I wish you all the best. And I can't wait to hear about how you're moving those 2 projects along with some external accountability. So thank you so much for being here, Amber, and serving my audience by letting us all listen in on this strategy session.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Productivity Straight Talk and hearing me have a strategy session with Amber Cortes. A big thank you goes out to Amber because it is not easy to go on air and get coached or get a strategy session when this is not your normal. And so for her, I want to send a big, big thank you out to opening this up to you so that you can learn and take action on some of these strategies as well. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So if you heard me doing this strategy session and giving lots and lots of advice to Amber, I don't want you to get overwhelmed. What I want you to do is, with your notes, look at the one that really, really resonated with you that you believe that you can take action on and be consistent with. I want you to circle it. Put a big round circle around that strategy that you liked most and focus on that one. And once you've done that, then you can go to your list of notes that you've taken and go to the next one and the next one. Do not overwhelm yourself with trying to overhaul and change everything at once. The real win here is consistency and long-term change. And to do that, it may work better for you to bite one strategy off at a time. And then when you have wins with that, you add the next one and the next one and the next one. And as a reminder, go over and grab my free trainings that I shared with you. Take Back Your Time mini training and my Pivot Masterclass. You can grab those by going to theproductivityspecialist.com/training. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode or any episode of Productivity Straight Talk, I would be forever grateful if you would jump on over to iTunes, if that's where you're listening, and leave me a review. Let me know what you like about the show and leave me a rating and review. This really helps get the podcast out to others and give them an idea of what to expect when they tune in. You can do that easily by going to the actual show in iTunes, click rating and review. It will literally take you 3 minutes, and I appreciate your time and your comments. All right, so that's my straight talk for you today. Until next time, have a productive week.